What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. We're continuing on our Hail Caesar review series here. Today we have the Ancient Britons, which is going to be a pretty straightforward list to talk about, roughly covering 1st century BC through 1st century AD. So, key things to look at, Boudicca, of course, and some of the other churches that they list here. If you're playing the Britons, you're probably already a little bit familiar with them. It's not necessarily one that immediately is going to be one that I think most people just gravitate towards. Seems like in general, like Romans and Greeks and stuff tend to get more of the limelight. But that being said, there are some people who definitely would jump out, and this kind of army appeals to them. But anyway, so starting off here, this has got an interesting set of sort of breakdowns for us here. We do have chariots here, which you don't really tend to see in any of the other similar lists here, like the Celts and the Germans, or I should say Gauls and Germans. But nonetheless, so we have cavalry and or chariots up to 50%, basically. And here we have this weird sort of light chariot that the Brits will be running, but we'll cover that in just a moment. Infantry is going to be 50% or more of the army. So, and again, really here you could create a nice sort of even mix, 50-50 infantry, cavalry, army, or really go a little bit heavier on infantry if you want to. Again, cavalry up to 50%, really, if you wanted to just throw like a massive infantry horde at someone and nothing else, you certainly could do that too. And speaking of hordes, 50% or more of your infantry do have to be warbands, and we'll talk about that. And again, that's going to be medium infantry warbands, and then our typical division skirmisher breakdown there. But before we jump further, guys, I just wanted to again point out, if you guys do want to help support the channel a little bit, check out the link in the description there. It takes you right over to Warlord, and if you guys pick up anything there, that comes back and helps support the channel. So give that a check out in the description of the video there. All right, moving on, guys, into the list here. And this is not a big list. Like we said, that's all there is to it. And it's, like I said, simple and straightforward. You're basically going to be throwing waves and waves of people at the opponent without too much in the way of subtlety or sort of more refined tactics. But there are, of course, some things to consider here. So let's start off with sort of the main key component of the army here, and that's going to be that medium infantry warband with basically swords and javelins. And again, this list can be very scary in the fact that your average unit is throwing a big chunk of dice here. But again, it's not going to be a very durable list. Again, combat drops off pretty significantly after that, the initial clash values there. Not really a list that's going to excel in long-range combat either, so missile combat, and not the greatest as far as, again, morale saves and stuff are concerned, but very, very scary on the offense here. So medium infantry warband, again, swords and javelins, 9 on clash, morale save of 5, and wild fighters, all for 28 points. So again, that is your bog standard unit that you're going to get in this list, and that's pretty good. That's all it needs to be. So again, very scary in block after block or horde after horde of these guys here. But 9 dice is no joke, and especially if they get the charge off, and wild fighters can certainly make that even a little scarier. It's just, again, if you can weather that initial storm with armies like this, if you're the opponent, then you do stand a pretty solid chance. But again, they're going to potentially throw tons of damage at you. So you can also upgrade all of these to large units, which really takes the combat power to pretty scary levels here. 11 on clash, 8 on sustain, so it's dropping 2 and 8, which is better than most other units could hope to be. It's just as far as dice quantity is concerned. Still wild fighters, but you're paying 7 points for that upgrade. Now, if you think back to a lot of the other sort of better units that we've seen on the heavy infantry side, those tend to be in the low to mid 30s on points. And here, you're certainly exceeding what those do on dice. But again, some of those other units have some other abilities and uses and things like that. But just sheer sort of offensive firepower, 11 dice, especially getting the charge off, is pretty damn scary. And again, dropping to just a measly 8 dice in sustained fighting. So pretty nasty overall. And we should mention, again, large unit stamina of 8 as well, so they can at least absorb some hits too. And then certainly if you wanted to, you could basically take one unit here as sort of naked fanatics. They do have to be standard size, so not a large one, but Stat line stays the same as the initial medium warband up above, but now you add Fanatic and Frenzy Charge for an extra 4 points. So you might as well take that one unit just because A, it looks cool, but also is just kind of crazy and might draw more attention from the opponent than it might otherwise require. But anything that can be a good distraction, and certainly it's still going to hurt if these guys get the charge off and make it there rather unmolested. So that is your basic infantry unit, and again, as we see here, as we kind of pan down a little bit, basically those are all your infantry, right? Skirmishers again don't count here, so as far as that part is concerned, so again, just medium infantry, warband after warband here, and it's going to look pretty formidable and scary for the opponent when they have to just stare across. Basically block after block after block of these things, knowing that pretty much no matter what they do, unless they can shoot one off the board with like missile fire alone before contact is made, it's gonna hurt. Potentially it's gonna hurt. But anyway, moving on, we get skirmishers here, sort of the typical package here of a couple of different units. The small javelin unit for 11 points, the slinger unit, which is almost all of your ranged here. You can have as many of those as you want for 12 points, but you only get one small bow unit for 12 points, and that is a little bit weird to me. I feel like that probably could have been left to not the one unit restriction, or maybe like X amount of those based on how many warbands you have or something like that, but it is what it is. But so overall, again, your long-ranged capabilities are going to be minimal in this list, so plan on that. It's going to be all up close and dirty fighting, basically. And you're going to want those skirmishers as supports and screens and stuff like that. So that covers the infantry side. Then our sort of cavalry slash chariot component of the army. And again, we don't really see any special units, or I shouldn't say special units, special abilities down here, but that's all right. You don't need them. Again, you get access to this stuff in quantity. And it can be up to 50% of the army as well. So it would, if you don't want to be one-dimensional, which isn't necessarily always a bad thing, especially if your standard unit are those warbands above. This really does offer you some flexibility and mobility, and if you happen to get a lot of experience with this list, you certainly can, I'd say, give pretty much everything else a run for its money if you got a smart game plan and stuff like that. It's just you're not necessarily going to have one-to-one superiority against other similar units that might come with better special rules or something like that, or just being an overall better army. But anyway, so we have medium cavalry with spears and or javelins. So your bog standard medium cavalry unit that we've seen over and over again for 27 points. We have light cavalry with javelins as a normal size unit. For 25 points, and interestingly, there's still a clash value of 7, so that's a little bit atypical from what we've seen of light cavalry overall. So they can definitely do some work, but again, just keep in mind it's got that they've got that 6+ morale save, so just keep that in mind when you're preparing to engage. So, and we don't have feigned flight or anything like that here, so you can't really pull the hit and run tactic all that well there. Then we also have light cavalry with javelins as small units. So again, lots of our small harassing type version of that, with the more typical stat line that we've seen then for the small units, and at 17 points a pop there. And then finally we round things out with the British light chariots with crews armed with spears and javelins. So again, only a clash of 6, sustain 5, but it does give us a morale save of 4 up, and but we do get to at least take advantage of the chariot abilities and things like that, all for 27 points a pop there, and it looks pretty cool as well. Just to have all that thrown in among everything else that you're feeling here. And then we just round that out with the typical leadership 8. And despite like Boudicca and all that, it doesn't make sense to like have a leadership 9 option for these guys. It's not like Rome really struggled all that much, all things considered. So 8 is more than fine here. 7 is definitely not warranted either. So a good, just solid army here. And again, based on everything we've covered, again, you're gonna have a lot of those warbands, and really, again, I would certainly, well, let's back up a second. You know, I would say the medium warband led, you know, like focus here, like maybe even 80-90% infantry in a list would certainly work. And hell, even if you wanted to go 100% infantry with the warbands and the skirmishers, this could still be a viable list. Again, you're going to kind of pigeonhole yourself a little bit though, because you know, every warband is ultimately going to be doing exactly the same thing in the same way if you want to capitalize on it. And again, that could be scary. It's pretty simple. Makes your orders and game plan a little bit easier too. Basically, get them across the board, hopefully without having too much damage. Get some charges off, punch holes in the enemy, and just kind of rinse and repeat there. And again, very scary if things like that can indeed punch holes through the opponent and then start getting off like flank charges and things like that. So a scary proposition there. And again, you have plenty in the way of those skirmishers that can help screen your units, redirect a little bit, and just overall be a nuisance to help deliver those warbands. But overall, I feel like bringing in at least 25% of the overall list in some form of the cavalry just opens up so many options for you just to have actual counters to opposing cavalry and you know, again, gives you that speed element in the list as well. And again, really, if any of your warbands can punch a hole through something, that can be a great spot for your cavalry to then sort of exploit those gaps or go chasing after things. Or if the opponent's just left their lines not all that well organized, again, the cavalry can be there to sort of find that spot and then sort of exploit it and open up a hole where then your infantry can hopefully advance and start breaking up and destroying the enemy in detail. So overall, not too many fancy bits here in this list, but just a great, fun, straightforward smash people in the face list here in the form of the Ancient Britons for Hail Caesar. So let us know in the comments, guys, what you think. I'm sure there's quite a few of you out there who have collected this. Overall thoughts on playing them, overall thoughts on facing them. What do you feel works well or doesn't work well? Do you agree or disagree with me? Let me know. Be happy to hear from you guys. Again, leave us a like and a subscribe if you haven't already, guys. That does help support the channel. And just to come back to what I said towards the beginning of the video, if you guys do want to support us even more, if you head over to Warlord via the link in the description and pick anything up there, that also helps support us. So hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks so much for stopping by again, and we'll see you in the next one.